I was only 6 years old when I lost my uncle to AIDS, and it was the most heartbreaking thing I think a 6-year-old could experience is the loss of a loved one. It can be a mother, a father, a brother, sister, a grandmother, an aunt, or uncle. What a lot of people don't realize, even in my well, my close family knows how I was with my uncle, but family members that are so close to me don't really understand why I keep my uncle's name alive all the time, because I feel like over time people have forgotten him. But in my personal, I know it's my personal choice that I do what I do for him, and I don't hate anybody because they don't do what I do for him. Obviously not, but I think it's important for somebody in my family to do it. And the thing that I do that I keep talking about, it's the AIDS walk. I do it every year. I've been doing it actually since I started high school. My uncle's story is very long, but I'm trying to make it as small as possible. So my uncle's name is Oliver, and he passed away in 2002 at the age of 28. He decided to leave this earth because technically he could have probably still been alive, and sometimes I have a hard time accepting that he was the one who decided that he no longer wanted to be here. My uncle Oliver um, grew up pretty much in the streets, and my mother grew up with her father, and her mother was raising two other kids, and their family was always disproportionate because everybody was separate. But my uncle Oliver, out of the 6 children my grandmother had, was the only one who grew up in the streets. My grandmother was very, very poor. He decided, like I said, to leave home at the age of 7. He grew up in the streets. He would beg for money. He would clean shoes. He would be an errands boy at restaurants. That means that he would go and buy groceries for the restaurant's owners, and they'll give him $1 or $2 a day. He started being sexually active when he was 13 years old, and obviously during his time there was no sex education. He decided to lose, according to him, this is his most accurate recount of how he caught HIV. So he decided, like boys, um, to learn from the best. So he decided to have relationships with a prostitute, and that's how he caught HIV. So supposedly he was 15 when this happened, and right before he turned 16, his best friend got into a car accident. Well, actually, he didn't get into a car accident. He was hit by a car, and he was rushed to the hospital. He needed a blood transfusion, and all his friends went there to the hospital to donate blood, and so did my uncle. So he went. He donated his blood, and they were just gonna try out which one was compatible to his friend. The clinic called the neighbor saying that they needed to speak to Oliver or to come in at the hospital because they have a news for him. So he went, He went to the hospital thinking that his blood was probably compatible to his friends, that they were probably going to use it for the transfusion. So, you know, he was going to the hospital thinking something completely different. Only did he know that it was going to completely change his life. So they sat him down. They said, listen, Oliver, your blood came back HIV positive, and we cannot use your blood to save your friend's life. He kept it a secret for almost like 7 years till he was like 21, 22. And during those 6, 7 years, he didn't take pills or medicine. He was just living life. By the time he was 21, he felt ill super bad. He was rushed to the hospital, and that's when they called my mother. My mother is only a year and a half older than him, so he was probably like 21. My mom was like, yeah, my mom was 6 months pregnant with me. They called her saying, hey, your brother's in the hospital. We need someone from his family to come because we need to speak to them. So my mom goes because my grandmother was nowhere to be found. Like, they were like, well, are you emotionally okay for what we are about to tell you? And you know, nobody, when I say nobody in my family knew what was going on with him. So my mom, HIV was never on top of her list of what might be wrong with my uncle. So they sat her down. They're like, well, your brother has AIDS, and it's killing him because he hasn't been taking medication for more than 5 years since he's been diagnosed with AIDS, and so he's right now critically in the hospital, but he can get through this. My mom fainted. She was 6 months pregnant, and that's how my mom found out. She was the first one to find out from the family. And since that day that she found out, she never left my uncle's side, ever, till the day that he died. For the next 4 years, he got better. He was taking his medicine. He was working with an organization from the U.S., which provided him with the medicine. He also gave talks at high schools about sexual relationships, about STDs, about HIV, AIDS, or how he contracted HIV, AIDS, and how to deal with it, and how it was to live with knowing that you have AIDS. I was everything to him, he said. I was the daughter he couldn't have, and he treated me so good. He was the best uncle in the whole wide world, and he just loved me so much. And every time my mom used to put me in timeout, he used to literally cry and be like, why are you being so mean to her? Don't put her in timeout, or don't yell at her, she's just a toddler, or stuff like that. He was always defending me. And I know I don't remember that, but just listening to people say that about him, that he was always defending me, and the love he had for me, makes me love him even more. By the time he was 23, he told my mother that he was going to live only 5 more years. And my mom was confused and was like, what are you talking about? He was like, I'm going to live 5 more years. And I don't want you to cry, and I don't want you to ask me why, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to live 5 more years, and I'm going to make it the best 5 years of my life. He passed away 5 years later. By the time he turned 28, he felt ill completely. He was done with taking like 16 to 20 pills a day. His body became like paralyzed, and And before his speech completely vanished, the last words he ever told me was "No llores, coneja," and what that means in English is that "Don't cry, little bunny." That's why he used to come. It made my mom very depressed. My mom was completely just devastated that she knew that she was losing her brother, and it was hard seeing him in a bed where he couldn't get up. We got home and the phone is ringing. His phone is ringing, and my dad was telling my mother, "Can you hurry up, open the door fast in case it's an emergency. We don't know, maybe it's your brother or something." So she opens the door quickly. She goes, she goes pick up the phone, and it's what we all were fearing, and it was like, "Your brother just passed away." Literally an hour and a half later that we saw him. And you guys to see a little glimpse of what he really was and where he came from. Well, his burial was amazing. His funeral was great. So many people showed up, but I will never forget that he had a beautiful soul. So that was pretty much just a little story time of how I lost my best friend, my uncle, my angel. I really think like I've been through a lot, and I think he's kind of been the one helping me get through it. So that is all for this video. Sorry if it got way too long. It's a normal boring video. I'm sorry, but it was just my personal experience of losing someone I extremely love to AIDS. So that's all. Thank you for watching my other videos and liking and subscribing and commenting and all of that stuff.
$7. No, I'm excited. I will be 1,000. And we're not.